I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
If you grew up in the 60s, it's hard for you not to identify with Bond. He was like, I'm kicking ass, I'm taking names, I'm making quips, I got your girl.
When did you say you had to leave?
Immediately.
So when the first James Bond film was made, a lot of risks were taken, and Sean Connery was one of those.
James, where on earth have you been? I've been searching London for you.
Ian Fleming and others were not super confident about Connery in that role, but the audience reception really proved that Connery could pull off Bond.
There's one cutting I read about you. It said you weren't living up to your image.
Would they pay the fines if I lived up to the image?
Sean Connery was so handsome. There was a kind of naughty fun just in his smile. And you felt as though you didn't need to know him. You weren't asking for an internal performance from him. He was somebody you could project a fantasy on.
My friends call me Tanya.
Mine call me James Bond.
James Bond is created during the Cold War by Ian Fleming, and in Cold War terms, James Bond is everything that the Russians are not. And that becomes a kind of subliminal appeal.
Take it easy, 007. My escape route's only for one.
In From Russia with Love, there's this fight inside a train car that Connery has with Robert Shaw. And it is in a tiny confined space, and it is brutal. And Connery could always get this look on his face like, I'm not gonna make it out of this room alive. And that's something that is absolutely essential to an action star.
Goldfinger is when it becomes a super spy film. It has the fantastical elements that kind of Bond really starts to lean into. We're in Fort Knox. There are women pilots that are very sexy, and you have a henchman who has a hat that could cut off your head if thrown at you like a frisbee. Everything about Goldfinger informs the rest of the franchise.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Bond never dies. No matter what happens from decade to decade, Bond manages to reinvent himself to achieve new forms of relevance.